Face unspeakable horrors, succumb to madness. Welcome to a free daemonic narrative experience inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Hello everyone, my name is Lunai, and welcome to this game inspired by H.P. Lovecraft called Dagon. Created by Bit Golem, this game is a narrative experience. This game not only covers a story, but it also covers H.P. Lovecraft's life, his love for his fans, and his stories. This week was purely just Lovecraftian horror, and Dagon was just the beginning of it. Right, let's get down to it. Beautiful Lovecraftian games. Love them all to death. But, let's go ahead and get started with this. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. You will not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot. This is a visual novel at its finest, at its peak. That is what this just said. Let's do this.
I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the elder sign. That was beautiful. So okay, so if it's like that, that is basically, that is just to continue the story. However, if it's like this here, we can click on it and it'll pull up like this. Lovecraft's letter. As two letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely, replacing conversation. As my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute, I cannot bear to talk much now, and I am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity, my loquacity extends itself on paper. H.P. Lovecraft to Reinhard Kleiner, December 23rd, 1917. So these are actual stuff. These are actual paperwork, letters, everything from H.P. Lovecraft himself. No, I will not be able to say majority of these. I will struggle, I will have my issues. Like, this word, loquacity, how do you say that? Loquacity? Quack, quack, quack. Tucking, quacking, let's do this. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day. But his tendency to endless correspondence was relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing. Thankfully, anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the ring of Saturn. Selected letters, 1929 to 1931, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books, and selected letters can be found online. Some readers can consider them his most important legacy. Wow. That is insane. Okay, me personally, I love history. I cannot go wrong about history. Oh my god, history is like my strong suit, but I think that's it. Is there anything else I can... No. Alright, let's get going.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer. and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
So there's something. Oh, nice. Okay, so there's that. Yeah, see, so like something like this. This is basically what it will pop up as. Morphine. Morphine entered into the use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War in 1861 to 1865. In World War I, 1940 to 1918, it was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Friedrich Sturner, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, Dagon, it's I know it looks like it's Dagon, but it's actually Dagon, which is interesting, was published. Morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Wow. So that was kind of like America's opium then, and maybe, I don't know. That's just what it sounded like to me. Okay, let's go ahead.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
What's this? Lovecraft. Oh, I just got a thing. Cosmic horror scholar find half the trivia pieces hidden. Lovecraft in the Great War. Dagon was written around a month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He composed bitty poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleine. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my own invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or a piece of shrapnel could more conclusively or effectively dispose of me. Letters to Reinhard Kleine, H.P Lovecraft. But even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going into the war. She has threatened to go any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me for the army. I am Providence, the life and times of H.P. Lovecraft, St. Josie. So that's actually crazy. He would have went to the war, but his mom stopped it all? Wow. Wow. And the thing about him saying impressed by his entire uselessness in the world, like being so sick, but yet, and you just get that feeling that you're just so useless to the world. In all honesty, it's not you're not useless. Just get friends, talk to people. Like freaking, even though he had his illnesses, he's still a major inspiration for a lot of us. He's still there. No matter, even while he's dead, I bought the whole collection of his stories. I bought, like, I have a whole collection. I can post it later. But I have a whole collection. And ever since I was young, I've always been a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, no, I couldn't really read it because my reading sucked, but I still loved it. I still loved the Cthulhu mythos. I still love all that stuff. But that's crazy. He wanted to go. He basically wanted to go to World War One just to get killed. That's basically why he wanted to do it, from what I just read there. He wanted to go and to get rid of his nervous force, which is not inconsiderable. So his sheer nervous force was affecting him, but it might sustain him until a bullet or a piece of shrapnel could kill him. That's basically what that means. So that's crazy. Wow. Is there anything else? Or is there just one and everything? Looks like it. Okay.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
Interesting. So, okay. Let's see here. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who enlisted a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. I remember this because I'm a big fan of the Romans. Major fan of the Romans. This is why I love games like this. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops 27th July 1900 before they embarked to China. Wow. That's crazy. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners shall not be taken. Whoever falls into your hand is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago, the Huns under their King Attila made a name for themselves, one that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. Wow, that was crazy. The refusal to take prisoners was clear breach of the laws and customs of the war adopted during the first Hague Convention of 1899. That is, I never knew this. I'm a history freak. I love history, and I never knew this. None of this. That's crazy. I love the aspect that Wilhelm II did his history about the Huns. The Huns were brutal. The Huns were nasty. They destroyed the Romans. The Romans had no answer for them. By the time, because the Huns went to basically, it was the Gauls. The Romans took the Gauls, then they went up to the Germanic people. Well, to the right of that was also the Huns, who also invaded the Germanic people. The Huns could defeat the Germanic people, but the Romans couldn't. The Romans struggled against the Germanic peoples, and then the Romans had to fight against both the Germanics and the Huns at the same time. It's very interesting. Is there anything? No, okay. Let's keep going then.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
There's nothing here, really? Wow. Yeah, let's get going then.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Interesting. Yeah, see, there's nothing here too. There are bits and pieces where there's nothing. Yeah, let's get going.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
The return to the short stories. Dagon was written in July 1917 and first published in 1919 in the Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduced an element from the Cthulhu mythos. Dagon itself, a pagan cult worshipping Dagon, later appears in the Shadow over the Iron's Mouth, one of Lovecraft's most popular works. 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jarvis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. These two works marked Lovecraft's return to the short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior, and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again. Wow. Okay. So he burnt most of his... Okay, that's interesting. Get going.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know.
What's that? Whoa, ugh.
For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Really? Ooh! What the oh, brother! No! No! That is disgusting! That is genuinely disgusting, dude. Ew, and there's tentacles at the back of the boat, too. Oh, Lord. There's nothing here. There's still nothing here. Dude.
When at last
my
I
God.
awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished.
Wow.
For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
That is gross.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear.
They're all just like sunken in. That is gross. That's cool. I like that one though.
The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Wow. Oh. The origins of Dagon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Irvin S. Cobb about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror and literature, H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells. In his own words, I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old, but I cannot recall what early experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. The Dweller in Darkness, Lovecraft, 1927, Donald Wandre. Wow. That's interesting. That is actually interesting. I love this anthropod though. I love this one. This anthropod is so. Oh man, look at the little arms. Look at the little arms. Okay, I'm out. Let's move on. Oh.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one
What is
theory
that?
could explain my position.
What is that, dude? Why is it pulsating like that? That's weird. That is disgusting. I mean, it's cool, but it's gross. I feel like I'm gonna puke. No, I'm trying.
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths.
But why would it be black though? Why would it be slushy like this? This is low-key a slushy pit with extra nutrients and protein in it.
So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
Wow. So there's nothing else here. There's no like scavengers here. It's just dead things. Wow. That's weird. The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating porous rock created when the superheated pressure rock is ejected from a volcano can move across long distances and transport barnacles. The floating porous rock created when the superheated pressured rock is ejected from a volcano can move across long distances and transport barnacles and macroalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga, Polynesia, eventually reached Australia. Wow, that's crazy. That's insane. Sorry about my speech. It's a bit off, and my lip is hating life at the same time. Oh, wow, that's crazy. So like that right there, is that what you're like talking about? Interesting. Move forward.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
There's like little sticks in it. That's weird. It is like mud.
That night
It looks
I
like
slept
mud.
but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Dang. I'm like, so my issue is that I really get sort of tired whenever I'm reading. I don't know why. I just like, whenever I read stuff for a long period of time, I just grow really tired. Alright, let's get going.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
What is this? This does not look like a fish. That over there is a fish. That one right there. This is not a fish. This is a, like, an arm. That's a... that's not a fish. At all. It's nothing. Nothing.
All day I forged steadily westward,
What is that?
guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
What is that? That is not a fish. You cannot tell me that that's a fish. What the heck is that? What is this? This looks like a freaking bug off of Starship Troopers. That is a kaiju. This is a face hugger? I don't know. Looks like a face hugger. Weird. There's like really nothing to like. I feel like I'm missing stuff, but I don't know. Okay. Oh, dude, no way. Not the whale. Man. That's very depressing. Yeah, all these are dead by now. Let's see, is there anything else here? No? Okay.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
What's this? The horrors of the ocean, the creator of Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of Riley, was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. Today we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many peculiar organisms. The deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far, the Mariana snailfish, can live about 8,000 meters, more than 26,000 feet below the ocean's surface in never-ending darkness and at hellishly crushing pressures hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Holy crap, dude. Upon glancing at modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish, Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish and the fang-tooth or the viperfish, and their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, it's not hard to find some irony in this. It's really not. This has a point. It's not. like the blobfish is weird. That looks something out of Lovecraft. But 26,000 feet below sea level, at crushing depths, hundreds of times stronger than those that we deal with, is insane. That is crazy. What is this? What? Hey, whoa. Why is it bigger over there? What is this, dude? What is this? Is this that Viper thing that they were talking about?
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Imagine sleeping.
I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Wow. Okay. Oh, there's one right here. The Loner. Contrary to popular opinion, Lovecraft was not an ever-frowning, eccentric, grumpy loner. He considered himself to be a person who appreciated humor. Moreover, he's just like me for real. Moreover, he would often meet with friends in his apartment or at various cafes in Brooklyn and Manhattan. At times, his social life was so intensive his work would suffer for months. There was a point when he finally decided he needed to put an end to daily meetings and loitering in New York cafeterias and resorted to hiding at home and reaching with the main room light turned off. Pretending he wasn't there whenever a friend knocked on his door, he also had another method of deterring his guests, which involved greeting them in a bathrobe, and with an unmade bed visible in the background and piles of papers scattered across the floor. That is absolutely genius and wise. Make it look like you're going insane. That is amazing. 10 out of 10. 11 out of 10. Freaking 11 out of 10 right there. That is amazing. He wasn't a grumpy loner, he just appreciated a sense of humor. Heck yeah, dude, that is me.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into
Holy
a fathomless
crap.
chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
See, people would find this as like a relief people would find this as like something to like chill out on, you know? People would find this as paradise and not a lost paradise, if you know what I
Ledges
mean.
and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
There's nothing here. Nope.
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
That's cool. That's very cool.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express.
Weirdo. Weirdo.
For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
Nice.
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Man, I keep yawning. Alright. So, bro, you want me to walk towards that? Are you serious? I mean, I'm a daredevil, so why not? Let's do this. Let's do this. Alright, hold on a second. Whoa, whoa.
The zenith shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
What in the world? Whoa. What am I looking at?
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
See, I see this, but that one on the right, that's that poisonous fish. I forgot the name of it. Or I think it's called like the tiger fish or something. I don't remember. But that's what that one looks like. These sharks. Okay. No? Yeah, that one on the right, yeah. There's that, I think that's that tiger. Then there's the octopus. Then, I don't know, is that like a giant squid or something? That left one looks like a coral, I think. I don't remember the name of it. That middle one, I don't know.
but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Storytelling methods. Dagon contained many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings at the Mountains of Madness and the Nameless City, journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Haunter of the Dark, islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies, Migo and the Whisperer in Darkness. It's also considered the origin of popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. You don't wanna,
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
Wow. That's crazy. Imagine a creature that big, just in our ocean, killing whales just left and right. That's crazy.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe, some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
That's crazy.
Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
What the no? What? What'd you
With
see?
only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Oh, what in the world? Oh my god, that scared me.
It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares.
Holy crap, dude.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
Wow.
I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. Distinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
I'm too busy trying to, find stuff.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
Pacific weren't the oh wait, yeah, no, never mind. The Germans were in the Pacific too. Never mind, my bad.
Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
In defense of Dagon, in 1921, Lovecraft released a series of 3 essays. The Defense Reopens, The Defense Remains Open, and Final Words, later published as a collection title in Defense of Dagon, in which he rebuked a series of criticisms directed at his works. Some notable quotes: "I paint what I dream and will let the public settle the rest amongst themselves." Dr. Monday asked the Raisin Dietrich of Dagon, is that Dietrich? I don't know. "I will give it purely and simply to reproduce a mood. Its object is the simplest in all art, portrayal. The physical horrors of war, no matter how extreme and unprecedented, hardly have a bearing on the entirely different realm of supernatural terror. Ghosts are still ghosts, then the mind can get more thrills from unrealities than from realities." In this essays, Lovecraft touches upon the topics of atheism, materialism, the quest for truth, and love of science. Beautiful. That is beautiful. What is this? Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism. In 1915, he started publishing his own word journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in the decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again. For the first time since his teenage years, Dagon, published in 1919, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of world peace. Why any sane human being can believe the possibilities of universal peace is more than the conservatives can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm, one or more nations could undoubtedly retain secret armaments and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare until the basic impulses of human animal shall be miraculously changed. Wow. So in 1915, he called out the German Reich. He called out Hitler and the Germans. That's what he just said. Because in 1933, Hitler came to power. Then he started the MFO bills while he built up his army secretly. That's what happened. H.P. Lovecraft just predicted World War II right there. He predicted World War II in 1915 in his own journal called The Conservative. That is insane. That's crazy. I never knew that. I love how it all is coming together. This game is bringing everything together, and it's just amazing. It is beautiful. All right. Is there anything else here that I should be aware of? you. Lovecraft considered himself an atheist and absolute materialist, which he attributed partly to his early childhood interest in astronomy and science in general. In his own words, "I am indeed an absolute materialist as so far as actual belief goes, with not a shred of credence in any form of supernaturalism. Religion, spiritualism, transcendentalism, metaphysics, or immortality. All I can say is that I think it is damned unlikely that anything like a central cosmic will, a spirit world, or an internal survival of personality exist. They are most preposterous and unjustified. Of all the guesses which can be made about the universe, and I am not enough of a hair splitter to pretend that I don't regard them as errant and negligible. Moonshine. In theory, I am agnostic, but pending the appearance of radical evidence, I must be classed practically and provisionally as an atheist." Wow, that's crazy. Sources against religion, the atheist writings of H.P. Lovecraft. Wow. Interesting. That is very interesting. Anything else? Far? No, let's go.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon.
Oh, my bad. The fish god. Dagon, see, this is what I mean. Dagon was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon it was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in a Syrian poem, and the underworld prisoner order in one of the Babylonian texts. Crazy. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretations of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's work, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I'm looking around real quick. I don't see anything else here.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
The Marketeer. Or the Marketer, my bad. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends amongst others. He started freelancing for a marketing magazine where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copywriting skills for yourself. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractors. Source: Lovecraft Studies, Volume 7, Number 1, H.P. Lovecraft. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he's surrounded by numerous controversies. One of the most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic. To the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Wow. That there kind of makes me mad, but I'm also grateful. The reason why I say that is because without that happening, without Derleth coming in and making the Cthulhu mythos a mythology, none of this would be happening right now. None of this would. You wouldn't have all these fans, no. And I just wanted to say about the ad earlier, that ad would not survive in today's world. That ad was so good, and it's kind of hard to read, but it's easy to read at the same time. That ad would not make it in today's world at all. No. It's too long. For us, we simplify it and put it into one sentence. That is the difference between 1920s literature and compared to today's. That there is what's wrong. Is there anything else I need? I don't see anything else. There has to be something over here. Oh, there is. These days, the word scientist is widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subject to a wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that man of science was more appropriate term to employ. He admitted in the defense of Dagon that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use the phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist, to be used when referring to those studying different branches of science. Yet in the 19th and early 20th century, scientific researchers in great science, resembling the term man of letters, was the only proper choice. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and the man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. That is cool. Wow. like that there, scientists used to be man of science, but we shortened it down to scientist. I didn't even know that that was there. We really gotta like pay attention here.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
So he basically, so like I said, this was like this morphine, or the soldiers addiction, or the soldiers, what was it? The soldiers' disease was basically the opium stuff, but in America. That's basically what it was. Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12 in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleine, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter to Zelia Brown. Dated 13th February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust at anything which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise? I don't know. Of the evolved human intellect, my bad. The human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance. Hence, I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I am rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as any other. Wow. So he used to smoke until he wore long pants. He had a very strong opinion against everything else. That's interesting.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Wow. Interesting.
The end is near.
What the heck? Hey, yo.
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense
crap.
slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me.
Bro. What? Oh, heck nah.
God, that hand! The window! The window!
Better go, bro. And he died. Ooh, ow. Wow. Thank you for playing. We hope you enjoyed immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate if you took a moment to check out the other DLC. So there are 3 other DLCs. If you guys are like this one, I will be willing to check out these. And we're gonna go back. Yeah, but yeah, so there are like 3 other DLCs that I might play. And oh, we got them all except for one, but 2 of them. Where were these? Okay, so I have a thing, right? I can't see red. I'm red-green colorblind. I can barely see red. Especially in this, I could barely see the red in this. So that's probably what they were. These ones were probably red, because I know a couple of them were red. So, but yeah, so I think I will be ending it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please do hit that like button and do subscribe. If you would like to see me play the DLCs or more, please comment down below. I don't know, safe word, or comment down Dagon to see more DLCs. However, I think that will be all. Once again, thank you so much for the support, and I just want to say that I do plan on my channel to be more of a background channel, like just you're doing stuff and my channel's in the background playing. That's kind of what I aim for with my videos, so that way I can be there while you do stuff, and you know, kind of you're showing your support. Well, at least that's how I do it. It helps me a lot be able to do my stuff and get through, you know, what I needed to do throughout the day. But that's basically what I aim for, and right, I'm gonna leave it off here. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.